Sports by Brooks on Fancred. Welcome in on a Monday. Tough Monday for, I think, everybody out there with the passing of Kobe Bryant and his daughter, Gianna, getting the word yesterday. It was really a surreal day for me personally because I was driving around Los Angeles yesterday and I heard a report on KFI, the talk radio station here in LA, about a plane that had gone down in the Malibu Canyon area right around Las Virgenes, which is an area I'm very familiar with. I've taken that road many times where unfortunately Kobe, his daughter, 9 people total perished in the helicopter crash. But I heard about this in passing on a report that didn't involve any of the occupants of the helicopter, how many there were, whatever it was. It was just that a helicopter had gone down in this area in the West Valley, as it's called here in Los Angeles. So I heard that, and then I'm listening to Fox Sports Radio, again, still driving, when the news came down about Kobe, his daughter, and the other individuals. Of course, we didn't find out it was 9 until later. But and then I proceeded to listen to talk radio, not so much sports radio, but talk radio here in LA throughout the course of the day. And it was a strange experience because of the way I first learned about it, and then the fact that I'm so familiar with it's actually where the crash site is. And I actually drove up and checked it out. I drove up and took a look at the crash site itself. I went up to the Mamba Academy to see what that looked like, what was going on there, how many people were up there at the time. This was late afternoon yesterday. And then I went downtown in the evening and saw what there was to see at the Staples Center. Big crowd down there. You're probably aware of it, as the Grammys were going on. So there wasn't a huge crowd outside the Mamba Academy, but there was a significant number of people. And there may have been a larger crowd later, or maybe today, who knows. And then, of course, you've got the crash site, debris field, which is right off, if you are in Los Angeles and you're driving up the 101, it's right off the Lost Hills exit. And that is when let's say you're in Thousand Oaks in the West Valley, which millions of people live up there. Calabasas, this is an upscale area for the most part. Agoura Hills is where the Rams are, their offices are. You've got Calabasas, Agoura Hills, and then Thousand Oaks, right? And so when you're going to be driving, let's say into West Los Angeles, let's say you want to go to Santa Monica, for instance, you don't want to go downtown, you would take this Las Virgenes road through the mountains to get you to the ocean, right? And then that takes you over to Santa Monica. So I'm very, very familiar with going from Thousand Oaks to Santa Monica and to Venice Beach, where I live, and back. And because I have a lot of people that I know up in the West Valley, Thousand Oaks and whatnot. So, and this is something that maybe Dave Smith can speak to later in the show. Coming up later on, Dave Smith is going to join us, longtime sports radio talk show host here in Los Angeles, sports media figure. He's on SB Nation now, national talk show host. He'll join us. Therese Paylor is going to join us to talk about the Super Bowl coming up, of course, the big story of the week, and we'll get his thoughts on Kobe Bryant. And we'll do the same with Andrew Siciliano of NFL Network, one of the all-time great guys, and he's been following the Kobe Bryant story very, very closely on his timeline on Twitter. And I really want to get some of his thoughts about that situation. Of course, Andrew Siciliano from, doing the Red Zone thing and all the work that he does on NFL Network. And he was at the Senior Bowl, and I want to get his thoughts on the Senior Bowl as well as we kind of transition into football this week. But we do want to spend some time on Kobe Bryant, and I do want to play at least one video. We've got a lot of videos, a lot of things that I put together this morning and last night, and really kind of knowing that we probably won't get it all on here on the show, but I did want to make sure we put a couple of videos up. And one of them I wanted to start with as we get ready to bring in Therese Paylor to talk to talk about the upcoming Super Bowl. Before we do that, I want to try to get this clip on, and it's the clip of Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna at the New Jersey, I should say Brooklyn Nets game. Wow, that's an old reference. Brooklyn Nets game. This was last week when the Lakers were playing against the Nets. And let me see if I can pull up the number of the clip. Our producer is Cam Smith, of course. And Cam, that would be clip number 4. If we could just pull that, I want to make sure we play this one clip, because this is the clip that really, I don't want to hit people like a sledgehammer on this, but if there's one clip that really, I don't know, brings it home, whatever you want to call it, all the cliches, it's this one. Kobe interacting with his daughter at an NBA game, talking to her. And I want you, when we look at this clip, to watch closely. And I know Cam Smith is efforting our producer as well. We've got 3 guests today at a very short window of time, so we're working on that. But
about that, Kobe and his daughter in the building.
Now watch.
Breaking down the game.
Watch her finish his sentence at the end. Watch this.
About that, Kobe and
watch her finish his
daughter
sentence.
In the building, breaking down the game.
I love this.
That's amazing. I just wanted to point that out. And, it's one of those things that you don't want to watch that too much. You don't want to, if you're not connected to the situation, it doesn't take much to get you into that emotional mode. And so, especially when you're spending a lot of time on it, like I am, and like people in the media have. And so it's I'm always one of these guys that tries to figure out, why are we so emotional about these things, that people that we don't know, he's a great basketball player, you might be a Lakers fan, you might not be, but why does he mean, guys like Kobe Bryant mean so much to us? I'm always trying to evaluate that. And it really comes home when you listen to a talk radio station like KFI, which is one of the most listened to talk stations, forget about sports, in the United States, here in LA, a legacy station. It's been around forever. But so I listened throughout yesterday to Shannon Farron, who does a midday show, and she's probably on in about an hour on KFI. She's on weekdays, but she also does Rams sidelines for the Rams games on KFI. That's where the Rams radio broadcasts are heard. She did coverage yesterday, as I'm sure on ESPN and on many other networks, you had full coverage wall to wall throughout the day. But to hear a talk radio station devote all of its programming, not just any talk station, but the most listened to talk station arguably in the United States, to this coverage. And I know it's LA, but I have no doubt there were a lot of different stations out there throughout the country that were doing something similar. It was really remarkable to hear, and it really drives home just how important sports is to our culture, how it has moved really to the center of our culture. I'm not so sure that would have happened even here in Los Angeles 25 years ago. When I moved here 20 years ago, it might not have happened. Look, had it involved a great Laker player 20 years ago, I mean, Kobe was, of course, just getting started at that point when I moved out here in 2000, for the most part. I'm not so sure we would have that kind of coverage. But now, because it's so prevalent as to be almost physically inescapable, because it's part really of Disney and Fox's business model. So it's always on. It's always being promoted, sports. That's not to say that's a bad thing. It's just different. And so you see what we had yesterday down outside Staples Center, thousands and thousands of people. I drove down there just to make sure, what was being reported, because you can't really get a sense of it because it's such a crowded area around Staples Center, just how many people there are. And of course, you've got the Grammys. So a lot of that area was, once I got down there, it was all blocked off. So you had to get out of your car and walk over towards Staples just to get a feel for it. And it really was remarkable to see the number of people, because sometimes these sports networks can over exaggerate, what the local impact of something is. And I'll give you an example. The New Orleans Pelicans game a couple of weeks ago that involved Zion Williamson, you would have thought that this was, one of the most important events in the history of Western civilization, that Zion was finally going to play for the Pels. And at least that's the way it was portrayed on ESPN. And when you watch the game, well, there were empty seats, not just a few. There were a lot of empty seats throughout the course of the game, not just at the beginning of the game or the beginning of the second half. No, the people just weren't going. So obviously, and I had seen and heard reports after that game where, okay, it wasn't that huge a thing in New Orleans, but you would have thought it was. And so that's what I was trying to confirm in this situation. Was it really this big a thing out here in LA? And I'm here to tell you that it is. It was, and it is, and it continues to be. And we'll continue to talk about it. And we'll talk to Dave Smith about that. Longtime sports media guy, national show host now for SB Nation. He was on MSNBC yesterday talking about the sad story involving Kobe and Gianna. And we've got some other things that we're going to get into as well when it comes to this story. Given an opportunity, we've got Terez Paylor scheduled to join us out of the blocks here, and then we'll be joined by Dave Smith, and we'll talk to Andrew Siciliano as well. Coming up here on Sports by Brooks on Fancred, we do this every weekday, Monday through Friday, beginning at noon Eastern time. So what I want to do now is I want to get into some of the video before we're joined by our guests initially here on Sports by Brooks on Fancred, and I want to start off with something that maybe you had thought about, but maybe haven't seen any any sort of or at least been given an idea as to why this was going on. And that is to say Kobe and the helicopter itself. Why would Kobe be in a helicopter? Why would he be doing that? Is that something he's been doing over the years? And we have a quick clip from that situation where Kobe's speaking to it. It's clip number 5, Cam. If you get the opportunity, clip number 5, where Kobe is talking about it.
After school activities, all that fun stuff, even on weekends. But then traffic started getting really, really bad, right? And I was sitting in traffic, and I wound up missing like a school play because I was sitting in traffic. And this thing just kept mounting, and I had to figure out a way where I could still train and focus on the craft, but still not compromise family time. And so that's when I looked into helicopters and be able to get down and back in 15 minutes. And that's when it started. And so my routine was always the same. Weights early in the morning, kids to school, fly down, practice like crazy, do my extra work, media, everything I needed to do, fly back, get back in carpool line, pick the kids up. And my wife was like, listen, I can pick them up. I'm like, no. I want to do that because you have road trips and times where you don't see your kids, man, So like every chance I get to see them and spend time with them, even if it's 20 minutes in the car, like I want that.
Boy, that's amazing. So before we talk about Kobe's remarks, here is the flight path of the helicopter yesterday, going from Orange County, John Wayne Airport, up through Orange County. Now, this is the LA Zoo area. If you know LA, you know where that is. I don't want to go into detail about necessarily where it is exactly, but it's kind of where you're going to turn left and go over the hill into the valley, and then you're going to go west. Turn left, if you will. So now he's going down in this helicopter. This is yesterday. This is the flight path of the helicopter. And you can see where he ends up. He ends up at that Lost Hills, Malibu Canyon.
After school activities.
The Lost Hills, Malibu Canyon Sheriff Station. That's almost exactly where the helicopter crash took place. And I want to quickly explain to you exactly what happened, because having listened to local news reports throughout yesterday, actually we'll get to that here in a moment, but first we're going to be joined, I think, by Terez Paylor, and we'll be talking, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Terez Paylor will join us now, and we're going to get some of his thoughts on what's coming on with the Super Bowl as far as the Chiefs are concerned and the 49ers, and maybe get a quick a quick thought on the Kobe Bryant situation. I can't thank you enough, Therese. Thank you so much for giving us some time today.
Yeah, no problem, Brooks. How's it going?
It's going great. And so just what are your thoughts right now in the aftermath of what happened with the sad situation involving Kobe and his family?
Legendary player, somebody who has obviously left a major impact on many people. I think you see the outpouring of love is a really good indication of the impact he made on the lives of a lot of people. I think there's a lot to learn from his life, including the value of making the most of every day and maximizing your gifts, right? Whatever you got, or whatever you want to be, go after it, work at it, be diligent at it, and make sure you leave a legacy that way. So I think those are things that, even in his death, that continue to carry on forward.
He certainly is an inspiration. He drives home that maximizing your gifts principle. And so let's talk a little bit about the Super Bowl now. And obviously that's your big focus coming up to this week. And you have some interesting stories. I'm from Kansas City originally. And in particular, your stories, your angles have really interested me. In the story that you did about Len Dawson and that iconic cigarette photo after the Super Bowl the last time around for the Chiefs, talk a little bit about that story.
Yeah, it was something I think this is the benefit of having really great editors at Yahoo. My direct editor, Al Toby, Johnny Ludden, they came up with this idea about coming up with, this photo is something that we've all seen and we've all kind of loved, right? Like we've all loved this photo, and let's just find the backstory on it. Let's just find out why that was okay at the time for him to be smoking in the locker room. Let's just find out what his teammates at the time thought. Let's find out what players now think about it. Let's find out if it has what the legacy really is. And it turns out it does have a legacy. You can find the photo splashed in different places throughout the Chiefs work offices. Some different employees have it up there in their desk. They do. Yeah. And it's just a photo that flashes back to a different time, a completely different time, some good, some bad, but it's a great player, right in the moment of just taking the sweetest drag ever. It's just a funny photo, and it was fun to report as well. And I'm happy with how it turned out.
It's amazing how it ends up fitting perfectly, though, into today's culture, being a Twitter meme, because I've seen it used for other things now, and now it's been given new life. We breathe new life into it, so to speak, right?
Yeah, and I think, you guys got to read the story, but I think there's some stuff that could happen on Sunday to maybe bring it back even more. Yeah. So I think that's kind of cool. I think that's kind of fun, and look, I think people do have an appreciation for history, and Len Dawson was a great quarterback and a Hall of Famer, and there's definitely some appreciation for everything he accomplished, and then just the photo just encapsulates the era just so perfectly.
So you got to go to Yahoo Sports. Of course, Therese is senior NFL writer for Yahoo Sports and a guy who did time as well as the Kansas City Star covering the NFL there. I'm from Kansas City, excited about it. But before we talk a little bit more about Kansas City itself, Tyrann Mathieu, he's a guy that he's an unbelievable player, but talk a little bit about a new name. We all know him. He's really his identity to a lot of people is Honey Badger is this nickname, but it turns out now he's developed kind of a new nickname, if you will.
Yeah, that's right, Brooks. He answers to Honey Badger. He'll still answer to that, but increasingly now in the Chiefs locker room, people call him landlord, right? And it's because the Chiefs and their fandoms, they kind of call themselves the Chiefs Kingdom. And Badger was here for 6 months when he kind of realized, I'm the landlord of this place. They brought me here to kind of give to kind of lead other alphas, and he's really embraced it. And he's also been empowered to do a lot of the things he does best, which is use his instincts to make plays. He gave a lot of credit to Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, for helping him maximize his gifts. He thinks he's playing the best football of his career. I would agree. He's first team All-Pro for the second time in his career. He has been playing some great football, and more than anything, he's really taken a leadership, a front stage leadership role in the defense. He speaks after every game. He's accessible in the locker room. He sets the tone day in, day out for being the accountable voice of the defense. And I actually think that really helps. I think it really, really helps that he's willing to be out there and be the face of it. And on Twitter, like he kind of like he'll respond to people who attack him or his teammate. Like he really like it's a real thing. Like the landlord thing is real. He just taking ownership of his defense in like a real kind of way. And that's why it fits. Everyone loves the Honey Badger nickname, but I asked him about this, and he said that the landlord nickname definitely fits where he's at right now at this point in his life better than Badger. So it's fun. It was a fun story to report as well.
Visiting with Terez Paylor, senior NFL writer for Yahoo Sports. As you look at the film, and I know you look at the film, what are the things you're looking at right now when you're trying to figure this game out?
Okay, so defensive keys for the Chiefs, because 49ers have an explosive offense. Listen, the foundation of their offense is the outside zone, but San Francisco uses a lot of different run concepts. They're very multiple. They do a little bit of everything. And the first thing you have to do is stop the outside zone, however, and that starts with setting the edge. And if you can do that, that gives you a chance to play defense in a lot of different situations. Being gap sound, being physical. I do think the 2 weeks will help as far as the recognition of the different run concepts that San Francisco will run. But if the Chiefs can't stop the run, they won't have a chance. Like, they got to stop the run. Then you got to make Garoppolo beat you on the play action, which he can do. Like the 49ers scheme play action wise is really, really solid. So the defense has to play well to win. On the flip side, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the 49ers match up with Patrick Mahomes. Their front four is incredible. It's one of the best I've seen all year. They consistently kick butt. Like, they just every week, these guys are getting after it. And I think they're going to have the opportunity to maybe just rush four. And if they can just rush four, that allows them to play coverage on the back end. But those four have to get home. And I'll also say this, their linebackers are fast as well. So, they're going to have to do what they can to keep Mahomes in the pocket. But then when Mahomes breaks the pocket, because he inevitably will, those very fast linebackers are going to have to get to him before he hurts you, right? That's a huge task. And it's one no team has really been able to do consistently for 60 minutes. And I don't think they're going to be able to do it for 60 minutes. But if their offense can roll and kind of get something going, the 49ers offense, they won't have to do it for 60 minutes. They'll just have to do it in spots. So I think this is going to be a great game. Like, I think the Chiefs are going to win, but, there's definitely a roadmap for the 49ers winning this game because they match up very well with the Chiefs.
Finally, and you just gave us a hint, but who do you like in this game, and who is going to be the MVP of this game, in your opinion?
In general, I don't believe in betting against alpha quarterbacks, elite quarterbacks that make stuff happen. Just think about how terrified you would be if you bet against Patrick Mahomes during the course of this game. Like, why would you want a piece of that? I'm not doing that. Like, who would do that? Like, I will put money against Patrick Mahomes. Well, enjoy 3.5 hours of terror. Like, I'm
right.
not,
leave the room.
Right. Like, you don't want to. So I'm going to pick the Chiefs to win just because I believe in Andy Reid and Mahomes. I do. I really believe that all that's going to be on point. But I'll also say this, like I said earlier, there's a roadmap for the 49ers winning. If the Chiefs don't play well or they get off to like another really slow start, this team is not the Houston Texans. They are better coached and they are way more talented. So, they got to play well to win, but I do think they will win. I will let others enjoy betting against Patrick Mahomes for 3.5 hours.
This is what it's all about. We've got the film study, and we have the Len Dawson, the Tyrann Mathieu, the nickname. Outstanding job. I can't thank you enough for coming on. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Brooks. Have a good one, my man. Enjoy the Super Bowl.
Thanks. That's Terez Paylor, senior NFL writer for Yahoo Sports. Outstanding job. And again, I just retweeted his story about Lenny the Cool, as they call him in Kansas City. Still around, long-time TV sports anchor, great guy. He's been on the broadcast forever for the Chiefs as well. And that iconic photo of him smoking in the locker room, it's so cool that a guy who breaks down NFL with the film, things like that, like nobody's business, would go in and dive into those stories as well and bring us the landlord nickname story from Tyrann Mathieu. To me, that's what it's all about in this day and age when it comes to, and I'm not saying that guys before the internet didn't do this or before Twitter, but it's really, really why I follow Terez at Terez Paylor. It's all one word, Terez Paylor, Paylor on Twitter. One of the best follows. And of course, working with Robinson on their podcast, which you could make the argument is the best NFL podcast out there. So it doesn't get any better than that. So really excited to have him on. We'll have Andrew Siciliano coming up and talk more NFL with him. And we'll talk with Dave Smith coming up as well to get some perspective on Kobe Bryant. And we'll get his Super Bowl pick. And Dave is not going to be shy about letting us know who he likes in that game. From what I understand now from our producer, Cam Smith, we're going to be joined now by Dave Smith, the sports god, coming in loud and clear from Southern California and getting his I can't think of a better person to talk to right now as it pertains to the situation that just came down with Kobe Bryant and his family. Dave, I can't thank you enough for joining us, man. Thanks for popping on.
Oh, it's great. It's been too long, Brooks, since we were on the air together.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about, just describe your day yesterday. What happened and what was your response as to what happened yesterday for you personally, for a guy that has been connected to this individual, Kobe, for so long and this story of his life for so long?
Yeah, it's amazing. I traveled with the team for a while. I traveled with them in 2001 when they played Philadelphia in the finals and was in the locker room so many times over the years chatting with Kobe. And then I'm on Twitter yesterday morning, Brooks. I didn't even know about it. And I see a tweet, R.I.P. Kobe. And I said, boy, what is that? Maybe a movie of his bombed or some business venture bombed of his. And then I saw some more tweets about the helicopter crash. And I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. This is an icon, Brooks. I think this is the most popular athlete in the history of LA sports in his 20-year career here. And I would jokingly refer to it all the time as the cult of Kobe, because Brooks, living out here in LA as long as you have, there's Lakers fans and then there's Kobe fans, and they're two separate things. And it is a passion and a love and a loyalty like I've never seen for a Los Angeles athlete before.
But that's really, really interesting. I was listening to Steve Hartman, another longtime Southern California media guy on Fox Sports Radio, and he said the same thing. And I've been around a long time, and actually my time here in Los Angeles kind of spanned Kobe's time almost with the Lakers. And for you to say that there are Kobe fans and there are Lakers fans, can you explain that, what you mean by that?
They are so provincial and so protective and so loving of Kobe Bryant. Remember when the Lakers signed LeBron last summer? And somebody out in Venice Beach painted a mural and had LeBron and some of the Laker greats all painted next to him. And it wasn't 15 minutes, Brooks, and someone went out there with a can and put an X to LeBron's picture and said, "We don't want you here. Go back to Cleveland. This is Kobe's town." So I think they wouldn't even want the Lakers to win a championship with LeBron because that would take some of the play. And maybe some people might say that LeBron's a better player than Kobe. It is just a fanatical, loving, loyal following for him.
It's interesting when you think about why that is. Is that because he's been here his entire career? Is it because of the Jerry West connection? Because I think that's one of the parts of this story. It's not necessarily being buried, but you cannot underplay what Jerry West did, and kind of take us through that, because I know you know that story about how Jerry West made this happen, because that's a fascinating story. And do you think this is a function of him just being here the entire time?
I think so. The 20 years, the 5 world championships. And, when I was growing up, this was a Dodger town, but those days are long gone. This has been a Lakers town since the 80s, since the Magic, Kareem, James Worthy days. And you brought up Jerry West. He brought in a 17-year-old high school senior named Kobe Bryant to come work out for the Lakers. Jerry West called off that workout after 5 minutes. He'd seen enough. He couldn't believe what he was seeing.
He didn't want anybody else to see it. He
Right.
didn't want anybody else to see him.
So he called off the workout quick, and he walked off the court like, "Oh, I'm not all that impressed with this high school kid." And then he wouldn't tell anybody. Well, the kid needs a lot of work, and I don't know. I don't know if he's worth the first round pick or not. But privately, he was telling other people in the Lakers, "I've never seen anything like it. This is the next Jordan." So then Kobe was canceling workouts with other teams, and then Jerry West did the prearranged trade before the draft for Vlade Divac, where Charlotte would draft Divac and trade him right away for Kobe. But remember an untold story there, Brooks. John Calipari almost screwed the Lakers. He wanted to take Kobe. He was the coach of the Nets at the time. He was walking up to the podium, and he wanted to take Kobe, and he chickened out by the time he got up to the microphone, and he took Kerry Kittles. He just couldn't pull the trigger on a 17-year-old Kobe. Just imagine how history would have changed had Calipari stuck to his guns.
Fascinating stuff. Dave Smith, the sports god. He's sports god on Twitter and a longtime sports radio talk show host, a guy I've worked with over the years as well. And I can't think of a better person to have on, because You were kind of over these past 2 decades with Kobe. You kind of slugged it out, maybe figuratively, with Kobe at times when you were on the air. I mean, what are your memories of Kobe and you yourself being on the air afternoon drive every single day that Kobe was so prominent with the Lakers? What was that like, Dave?
Oh, I loved it. I always got along with him, and it was always, Shaq was always more angry with me than Kobe because I always took Kobe's side in the feud between Shaq and Kobe.
I remember it well.
I get on the air and talk about how Shaq was fat and out of shape all the time, and I always got a kick out of Kobe, and I go after him, some of his shot selection and being lazy on defense. And you know the funny thing was, now how could anybody say this with this beautiful head of hair, Brooks? But he would always make fun of my haircut when I walked into the locker room, Kobe Bryant, and he'd say, "Oh my God!" And I get a haircut. He'd say, "That's just a shorter version of a disaster. What are you thinking?" And then he said one day, he said, "Hey man, hey sports guy, you want me to fix me up with my stylist here? We can fix that hair." And I said, "Well, does he do white hair, Kobe?" And he said, "No, he doesn't do white hair, but anything's an improvement on that. So go for it. Then do it anyway." So we always had a great time together. And I tell you a great story about him as well. When my daughter was 7 or 8 years old, I took her to Staples, got her credentialed. He met her out in the hallway. He signed an autograph for her. Then he sat there for 10 minutes and had a conversation. He asked her name. Well, what's your name?
Wow.
Where do you go to school? What do you like to study? What do you want to be when you grow up? How are your grades? And you want to make your dad proud to make sure you're getting good grades. And I never forgot how kind and great he was when nobody was watching. You know, the cameras weren't on. He wasn't putting on a show. He was genuinely so nice to my daughter, and she's never forgotten that.
Well, that's amazing because Steve Hartman, again, the Southern California sports guy like you were to a certain extent, you know, a guy who's been around a long time, told a very, very similar story. And I think it's difficult because people look at Kobe as kind of this hard person, but I think that was starting to soften up to a certain extent, maybe even especially you got an indicator with his response to LeBron passing him when it comes to all-time points. I think you saw Kobe with a much more conciliatory tone in that situation. My impression of Kobe was that he was starting to go in that direction, and there was already rumors out there. I don't know if you heard these, Dave, that he was thinking about running perhaps for mayor of Los Angeles or running for office. I mean, is that something that you think could have happened, and what might we have expected? I mean, it's a tragic thing to contemplate, and I want to make sure that people recognize the tragedy of that. But what do you think could have happened with Kobe had we been blessed to have him around a lot longer?
I think he could have run for mayor and won, or been a councilman, or maybe governor of California. That's how popular he was.
And serious. He came off as a serious guy. You
know what else he wanted to do? He loved stand-up comedy. He used to go to the Laugh Factory in the Comedy Store and out in South Orange County. And he told me he always wanted to get up there and give it a try one day and be a stand-up comic. People didn't know what a funny guy he was and what a prankster he was, especially in his early years. You know, when he was feuding with Shaq, he was kind of standoffish. But after Shaq was gone, he got much closer to his teammates, and he was a funny guy and a prankster. And I loved hanging out with him and talking to him.
Yeah, describe some of the background that you know about Kobe and his family. When you think about Jelly Bean Joe Bryant, these are things that people really haven't talked about at all, and they're not all positive. They're not all, you know, lollipops and balloons. But talk a little bit about some of the situation that Kobe that I remember so well with Vanessa and the family, and how that interfaced with his with Kobe's parents as well. Because to me, that's a fascinating study, and I think it also is an indicator of where he was going as a man, as a person, in reconciling with his family.
Yeah, you know, Jelly Bean and Pam, from my understanding, didn't go to Kobe's wedding when he married Vanessa, and they thought he was too young to get married. And she was 17 when they met, and I think she was 18, 19 when they got married, and he was 21. They thought he was way too young to get married. They were dead set against it. They didn't know her all that well. They didn't go to the wedding, and that caused a real rift in the family. Now, I understand that was kind of repaired a little bit over the years, but that was a big problem for a while. And also, remember that story? It was about his mother was selling some of Kobe's memorabilia, and Kobe found out about it and said, "Well, what are you doing? You have to get my permission before you do that stuff." And it was about $500,000 worth of merchandise.
Yeah, it's really an amazing thing when you think about the popularity of this man. And I think part of it is the function of how serious he is. And to me, that's the real inspiration for me personally, Dave, is how this guy was so committed to his sport. I mean, there's so many cliches and there's so many exaggerations about this guy or that guy shooting 500 jumpers, or this guy spending all this time. Is that sort of thing true about Kobe? You think that how devoted he was to the sport? Was there an exaggeration there?
No, that I think it's underrepresented about how hard he worked. He was the first guy at practice and the last guy to leave, and he outworked everybody. As great as he was, his work ethic, his ability to play through injuries. When one year he had 2 broken fingers and a fractured elbow and a knee that needed surgery, and he played the whole season and took the Lakers to the finals. His toughness, I think that's one of the reasons people love him in this town, because his toughness, his ability to play through injuries, his work ethic. And I think I might have been the first person who ever interviewed him, Brooks. I'm not sure, but when he was 17,
Vic the Brick.
when he was, it might have been me, it might have been Vic, it might have been Jim Gray. I don't know who it was, but he was 17 and he was out at the Long Beach Pyramid getting ready to play in the summer league. And before their first game, I sat down and did a 15-minute interview with him and played it the next day on my show. I couldn't have been more impressed that the poise and the composure and the maturity of a 17-year-old. He spoke 3 languages fluently. He got 1,300 on his SATs. The way he was dressed immaculately. Hey, Brooks, I was a grown man, and I was ashamed of myself after I interviewed him. I said, here's a 17-year-old kid that's got it all together like nobody that age I've ever seen before. He was so impressive.
Well, you know what's really interesting too, and maybe you can set the scene and describe this context. Is once upon a time, it was and of course we're pushing back on this with one and done, the whole principle of one and done. But if there's ever been a case study for not having one and done, it's Kobe Bryant. And I think that's what's really has gotten lost in this to a certain extent too, and is something that should be brought back up perhaps after this awful mourning period and this grieving period. It's never going to end. I recognize that, but starts to dissipate. Here's a guy that he came out of high school, and once upon a time, Dave, we're old guys, but I remember that was the kiss of death, and he kind of changed the game, didn't he?
I remember in the late 70s, Daryl Dawkins and who was it? Daryl Dawkins and Bill Willoughby and Moses Malone came out, and then there was a long stretch, and it wasn't until 1995 when Kevin Garnett did it, and then Kobe the next year. I think it's kind of a misnomer. People talk about washouts and people coming out of high school. I think a vast majority of the kids who went straight from high school to the NBA were wildly successful, and even the guys who didn't maybe pan out as good as people thought became millionaires and had multi-million-dollar contracts. So who can you think of that came out straight out of high school that really washed out and didn't make it in the NBA? Most of them were successful. Yeah, they were, and I think Kobe started to usher that in. And that's what makes the one and done thing to me so absurd and ridiculous and self-serving for the big time coaches. We're visiting, of course, with Dave Smith on SB Nation, and a long time Southern California sports media guy who has hosted sports radio talk shows for as long as I've been in Southern California. So if there was one or two things, though, that you take away as you move on throughout the course of this week, and I know you're going to be doing your show, what are some of the things that you're going to be talking about that you think about? I know we've covered some of them, but just that pop into your mind about Kobe Bryant as we kind of wrap things up and wind it down talking about him. Oh, boy, his legacy. And I was talking on Twitter and on my show last night. What do you think the greatest moment on the basketball court in Kobe Bryant's career was? His influence on the younger players, his work ethic, as we talked about before, his will to win, that kind of seems to be missing in today's NBA. And the fact was that he took no prisoners out there on the court. And even Shaquille O'Neal, who was, the self-proclaimed most dominant center in the NBA, Kobe would go after him at practice every day, and he would just be livid. Brooks, you remember this. When Shaq would show up to training camp out of shape, that would drive Kobe absolutely crazy. That happened all the time. And, it's him and Michael Jordan, I think. Kobe might not be top 5 of all time, but he's certainly right there with Michael Jordan when it comes to work ethic, being a two-way player, defending, playing hard, playing through injuries, willing himself to greatness. There's nobody above Kobe in that area. Do you think that we have gotten past the MJ and the Kobe Bryant mentality of a player, and now it's, everybody's together, everybody's a kumbaya in the NBA, and you're never going to have a guy with that sort of competitor spirit? Is that going away? Is that one of the reasons why he resonates so much, because we don't have that anymore? I think that's a great point. I mean, who can you name in the NBA now who's like Michael and MJ with all the great players? They all get along. They all maybe Durant might be the closest thing. Maybe, yeah, maybe. But he's not a killer like Jordan and Kobe were. Zion, as great and as explosive as he is, he seems like a very, very nice kid and laid back. I don't think he's a killer. either, especially at this point of his career. So, yeah, I think it's a lost time in the NBA, and it's now Brooks, it's now they're chucking up 53-point shots a game. It's either a dunk, a layup, or a three-point shot these days. The mid-range game is gone. The toughness is gone. Taking your guy off the dribble and pulling up for the mid-range jump shot is gone. So it's a whole different game now than it used to be. It's softer now with the rules too.
I wish we had more time to talk not only about Kobe, but what you're referencing and get your thoughts on the future of the NBA. And hopefully we can do that in the future. But before we let you go, of course, you got the Super Bowl coming up. And what's your pick? What are you thinking on as far as the Super Bowl is concerned this Sunday?
I like the 49ers, but I always like the teams with the better running game and the better defense. And now we've got two of the worst clock managers maybe of all time in Kyle Shanahan, and especially Andy Reid. Andy Reid in Mount Rushmore, he's right behind Mike Martz, like just a hair behind him, and just barely ahead of Pete Carroll as worst clock managers of all time. And when it comes down to the last 5 minutes, Andy Reid's going to screw up. He's going to do something stupid with the clock in his timeouts. But I hate to say this, being a 49ers fan, Kyle Shanahan, we got to remember 28-3 3 years ago, Brooks, when it was the worst play calling and the worst game management maybe I have ever seen by Kyle Shanahan. And I read an article this week that scared me, Brooks. He was talking about it, and he didn't admit he was wrong, and he said he would do the same thing all over again. And I said, oh, my God, he's learned nothing from 28-3.
So I appreciate you coming on, Dave. Are you coming to us from Santa Maria and the Alamo today? Is that your location?
I'm out in the fields of Santa Maria right now, and I've got to I got to go out and use the outhouse out in the backyard, and then you take the Pony Express to go get my mail in a few minutes.
This is outstanding, Dave. Thanks a lot for dropping in. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
I got to go shovel some coal into the stove. I'll be right back.
Right. That's Dave Smith, of course, longtime Southern California, longtime talk show host, and a guy whose prominence in Los Angeles has really paralleled Kobe's to a certain extent in terms of being on the air. And now he's a national guy, big time, big shot. And it was able to find some time for us. It was nice enough to hop on here on Sports by Brooks on Fancred and share his thoughts, in terms of his relationship with Kobe Bryant on a personal level, on a public level, and give us a little perspective that you wouldn't otherwise get from someone like Dave and myself here in Los Angeles, kind of having lived through it because I moved out here in 99, 2000. And that was right when Kobe was starting to get heated up in terms of the public eye in his own career. So Andrew Siciliano of NFL Network, hopefully we'll get a chance to visit with him a little bit about Kobe here in a second. And also I want to talk to him about the Super Bowl. I want to talk to him about the Senior Bowl if he gets an opportunity to join us. But we've also talked to Therese Paylor today. We broke down his thoughts on the Super Bowl, a guy who is really into the film, really into the study, in going into minute detail, more so than a typical senior NFL writer. Of course, Therese with Yahoo Sports. And then also we talked to him briefly about Kobe and his thoughts. And there's not, there's not a whole lot to say other than, repeating what a lot of people, what their sentiments might be. And for me personally, I don't mind it because it's not like we're going to be doing it every day for the next week or even tomorrow. But the one thing that comes to mind with me personally with Kobe as I think about it, and it is important to me, and it is an inspiration to me personally. And it plays into doing this show, and that is the amount of effort that guy put into at the highest level. And a guy is that talented, yet he puts that much effort into something. That, to me, is a personal inspiration as to what I do, whether it's on this show or anything. So now Andrew Siciliano is joining us from NFL Network, fresh off spending some time in Mobile, Alabama, the garden spot that Mobile is. Love it down there. And the Senior Bowl, which is, I think, one of the more underrated events in football every year. Andrew, I can't thank you enough. Thanks for popping on. Crazy week.
Yeah, crazy week, Brooks. Thanks for having me on. Sorry for all the DMs and texts and all that. It's been crazy. And sorry for not getting this situated. I decided last second to go headphones, and then I got them all tangled. You are looking live at me trying to untangle my headphones. Stay there.
Dude. This is actually,
it's not your producer's fault. This is my fault. There we go.
Actually, you look great. This is the best setup we've had so far.
Fantastic.
All you, man. It's all you. So first off, what are your thoughts about what's played out with Kobe and his family? Because it's unbelievable.
It's awful. I was struck by something, believe it or not, Wolf Blitzer said today. Had Karan Butler on in the last hour, and Karan was crying, understandably. And Wolf used something that you say in Hebrew in the Jewish faith when you mourn someone. You say, "May his memory be a blessing." And I don't know if that phrase has ever fit better than for somebody like Kobe Bryant, with so many people that he has touched, that he has inspired, that he has driven to greatness. And it's funny that there are so many people that are inspired by him, but at the same time, driven to greatness almost for his approval. Like he has made so many other people better. And it is remarkable how many people see him as a mentor who are peers, not just little kids, not just young people, not just like what Trae Young did last night, but people who are peers, who are the same age, who are maybe even older. And he has inspired people of all ages. And it was just a gut punch. I was flying home for the Senior Bowl, and I was about 5 minutes before landing here in LA. And I had Wi-Fi, and I got a text from somebody. "Oh my God, Kobe." And I went, what are you talking about? And then I did a quick search. TMZ had posted the story, but they hadn't tweeted it yet. And they sent me a link, and I clicked on it. And Brooks, fake websites and hacking and, fake Twitter handles. I'm like, no, this isn't real. This can't be real. And then 3 seconds later, they tweeted it. And I got the chills, and I started to well up. And then when we landed, again, 5 minutes later, and everyone's turning their phones on for the first time, you could just see, like, this guy 2 seats to my left looked down on his phone and just went like that. And there was this collective shock on the plane. And then you get off the plane. And I've never heard LAX so silent, because everyone was just like zombies staring at their phone. And I still don't believe it's true. I opened my eyes this morning. The sun was coming through the windows. And it's as if the whole thing was a bad dream.
I drove up to the crash site, and I'm very aware of the Lost Hills exit. And if you are in the West Valley, where you drive from Thousand Oaks, if you want to get to Santa Monica, that's how you do it. So I drove up to Mamba Academy. I drove just to kind of a catharsis for myself. But when I saw that debris field, that's when it's devastating. It was devastating to me, where it really. And then, watching, his Kobe and Gianna, his daughter, I don't know if you've seen this. And I think I retweeted it on my timeline, where they're Kobe's talking to Gianna at the Brooklyn Nets game. Sure. I think it was last week. And she's finishing his sentences. That's when, okay, I need to shut it down and go do something else, because I think that will always stay with us. That's in what you're talking. He is truly an inspiration. This is not a typical, obviously, sports figure who just happens to be great. But to me, he personally inspires me in his approach to life and
absolutely
devotion to his kids. And I think that is kind of unspoken, but resonates with all of us. So,
and there are, and I've already, thankfully, only one or two people, but people say, well, why is he in a helicopter? Like, it's actually for his kids, which is just the sad part.
We just played a clip of him explaining it. It's all about his kids.
I mean, he used to land on top of a skyscraper in downtown LA on game night. That's how he commuted, and he did that so that he could spend more time with his family. The latter part of his career, he was commuting to Staples Center via helicopter. By the way, he's not the first to do it. I mean, Phil Mickelson used to go back to San Diego when he was playing a Riviera in February here at LA too for the PGA Tour. It's just sickening. And not that any other life should be taken before one, but it's just the idea that he is gone. Honestly, Brooks, I turned the TV off yesterday. I tried to put down social media because after a couple of hours, I just couldn't handle it. I got dinner and went to a movie. I picked the wrong movie. I mean, 1917 is great. It wasn't the kind of movie I should be seeing on that day. I should have seen something lighter. But anyway,
Wow. I think we just got to kind of talk football here for a second. And
I'm more than happy to.
And what a week to talk it. We got the Super Bowl. But the first thing I want to talk about is a Senior Bowl. And as you're flying back, Are there players out there where you're in the back of your mind saying, yeah, I know about this guy and nobody else does, and I'm ahead of everybody on this? Who are some of those guys?
I mean, there are certainly like small school guys like Kyle Duggar, who's a safety from Lenore Rhine.
This is what I love right here.
D2, Hickory, North Carolina. He had 5 punt returns for touchdowns. He blew people up. He proved that he could play. It's the beauty of the Senior Bowl in that you have small school guys that come to this event. They play against the SECs, the Pac-12s, and they prove that they're legit. I think the numbers from last year's game will tell the story, and that there were 93 players from last year's game drafted. 40 of them were in the first 3 rounds. 10 of them were in the first round. Now, I don't know that we had 10 first-round picks there this past week, but just look at the 49ers. They coached there, and they got Dre Greenlaw, and they got Deebo Samuel, and they got Mitch Wishnowsky, and those are 3 huge parts of their season. This year, Dre Greenlaw with the goal line stop against the Seahawks. We've seen what Deebo Samuel has done. Mitch Wishnowsky is a great punter. The Chiefs had Juan Thornhill from that game as well. They weren't coaching. They were merely scouting. He was a huge part of their secondary before he blew his knee out in December. There are contributors up and down the line on every good team. And that was the beauty of the game. This year, I think we saw Justin Herbert make a statement, and I think a big part of this draft coming up is assuming Burrow is number 1, who is number 2, and does somebody leap ahead of Tua? There's a lot of talk that Tua might need a redshirt year, that even if he does get, to 5 at Miami and they take him, that he may not be ready. And that's a big part. Like we say, he's going to work out in April, and he's going to prove in April that he is ready for the draft. Okay, but how much can he do? And he might be able to show that, yes, he is well down that comeback trail, and he should be okay. But is he okay in July? Is he okay in August? Do you have to PUP him or ease him in? And if that's the case, does a quarterback-needy team go elsewhere? And might they go Justin Herbert? Might they go Jordan Love, the Utah State quarterback, who not a lot of people know about? And he really didn't shine in the game on Saturday. He had a good week of practice, and people want to make the Mahomes comparison because he throws sidearms sometimes and can make these crazy crossbody throws. I don't know that he's Mahomes, though. Few people are. No one is, actually. But those are, I think that's the storyline coming out, is does somebody get ahead of Tua?
Boy, that was my next question, was about Jordan Love. And we're visiting, of course, with Andrew Siciliano, NFL Network, and, of course, Red Zone, DirecTV. And let's talk about the Super Bowl before we let you go, because I don't want to keep you all damn day. This is the craziest, busiest week of the year, I know, for you. So what about the Super Bowl? Who do you like in that game, and who do you think is going to emerge individually out of that game?
I have a hard time picking against the Chiefs. I'm hit, though, by last year, where, remember, coming in, it was going to be the highest scoring thing anyone had ever seen, right? The Rams can't be slowed down. The Patriots, they found a way, and it was 3-0 at the half, whereas the year before, where we had 74 points, scored the second highest point total of all time. I do think it is hard to go against the Chiefs because despite their horrifically bad starts the last 2 games, they always find a way offensively. They cannot afford a slow start this time because the 49ers are holding teams under 100 yards in the first half. That's comical. So there isn't going to be some crazy comeback, I don't think, against the 49ers. The sentimental pick is for Andy Reid. I'll say this. These 2 teams, I think it is safe saying, their window is wide open. This isn't like the Patriots where last year you say, they got to win this one because if they don't, that's it. We also thought the Rams window was wide open. I still do think it's pretty good. They had the biggest win total of any team that didn't make the playoffs at 9-7. I think, though, we should get used to seeing Pat Mahomes there, and I'm never going to vote against Kyle Shanahan because he's proven that he has something.
I've been throwing this out there, totally overreaction, irresponsible, but I think this could be the beginning of the 49ers kind of mini dynasty. And I think a lot of that is reflected in Kyle Shanahan. And, of course, what can Jimmy G do? What were you going to say?
I think Jimmy G's only – oh, man, I got to find myself now. I told myself I would not say Jimmy G the entire season. No, really.
Why? Why?
Because it just seems to me such a silly, trite nickname. I'm not, by the way, throwing this back at you. I'm just saying in general.
Yes, I'll take it.
We have anchors at major networks. No network named here. I'm not talking about I'm talking about every place. Jimmy G. Say his damn name. His name is Jimmy Garoppolo. It's like we're allergic to – I'm an old man rant. This is an old man rant coming right here.
Right.
I'm not going to tell anyone to get off my lawn. His name is Garoppolo.
This is like a WMAQ newsroom.
His name is Garoppolo.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, not at you in general. So I've not said – and producers at NFL Network have tried to get me to do it all year. They've got in my ear. Jimmy G next. Like, toss to Jimmy G. Okay, Santa Clara, White. First topic, Jimmy G. Like, traffic in my ear, right? And then get Steve White. Nope. Jimmy. I've even gone overboard to Jim Garoppolo.
Right.
James Garoppolo.
Right.
Like, anyway, I do think that Garoppolo, people think I'm insane now.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
I'm mad. Has a very bright future. And listen, I don't think anyone's going to go back and look at Olandis Gary or Mike Anderson or all the other great running backs that Mike Shanahan had success with in Denver. But the system has proven valuable. And I fully believe that system will still remain valuable as Jim Garoppolo continues his ascension in the quarterback
James
field.
I like it. That's a great way to end up, man. Have a great week. Thanks so much, man, for joining us. I really appreciate it.
I'm not insane, I promise. See you later.
Andrew Siciliano is not insane. I'm with him on that. James Garoppolo, he is the guy to watch coming up in the Super Bowl as they take on the Chiefs. And as you may know by now, I happen to like the 49ers in this game. And I think the 49ers in the future are looking at something similar to what Andrew just referenced. It's funny that he brings that up because that's the one thing we've been talking about that I really haven't heard. Maybe they're doing it on the NFL Network, but referencing, of course, Kyle Shanahan's father's system with the Broncos and that zone blocking scheme and how they've done things offensively. That's one of the reasons why I'm so bullish on the 49ers. So that is going to wrap things up. What a great show. A quick hitter show for you. We've had Therese Paylor. We've had Dave Smith. We've had Andrew Siciliano. We have covered it all in the aftermath of arguably the most tragic moment of, I don't want to say 2020 because we just started 2020, but unfortunately I can't imagine it gets any worse than this. And I can't imagine that it will. Let's pray that it doesn't. But in the aftermath of this tragedy, trying to make sense of it. I think Andrew did a great job of that in us going back and forth and having kind of this, relaxed conversation that Fancred provides us every single weekday here beginning at noon Eastern time. So we'll be back here tomorrow. And we may still be in that reminiscing mode, that grieving mode to a certain extent. But as Andrew said, you got to kind of maintain, your sanity going forward. And the more I talk about it, the more I talk about that, look at that video of Kobe and his daughter and my own personal experience going up there and looking at that debris field. It really, that's when it really overwhelmed me. And you kind of catch yourself and say, okay, we got a show to do. And we got games to be played, games to be talked about. So for our producer, Cam Smith, great job by Cam as always. And from Los Angeles, this is Brooks Melchior reminding you tomorrow back here, noon Eastern time. All right, noon Eastern time. We do it weekdays at noon. And I'm Brooks Melchior reminding you to come back tomorrow. And this has been Sports by Brooks on Fancred.